Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another daily movie review. I'm your host, Shaun. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little different. I just got back from the 4K Fathom Events theatrical screening of Akira from 1988. The film is directed by Katsuhiro Ôtomo, written by him and Izo Hashimoto. He also wrote the manga that started in 1982 and actually didn't finish until 2 years after this movie came out. The movie is very different than the manga. A lot of different stuff, a lot of different twists and turns, a lot of different characterizations. The plot synopsis is: a secret military project endangers Neo Tokyo when it turns a biker gang member into a rampaging psychic psychopath who can only be stopped by two teenagers and a group of psychics. Oh my goodness. This is a Chronicle ripoff, everybody. Oh my god. Somebody call Max Landis. Let him know. Somebody got in a time machine and ripped off his film Chronicle. That's a joke, obviously. Chronicle. If you haven't seen Chronicle, the Josh Trank directed, Max Landis written, found footage teenage superheroes, teenage psychic people movie. Which actually it's not a terrible movie or anything like that. But it's very heavily inspired from Akira. Akira is one of those movies that you can show people that aren't necessarily into anime or anime fans. If they're casual, if they're normies, you could show them Akira. Akira is kind of just a good, kind of crazy, wild science fiction movie. It's got a lot of interesting layers to it. It has interesting philosophical ponderings. It's got great action set pieces. I mean, the final 15 minutes of the movie are pretty mind blowing. Not just in content, but in also kind of composition. Some of the coolest action scenes, weirdo, freak out sci-fi stuff, that's kind of really out there. You know, it's a cyberpunk classic. And as a lot of animes do, a lot of science fiction animes, it's got its own kind of pace and style. And I've always really appreciated that about Akira, especially because it's able to kind of put forward these ideas about society, philosophy, belief, and kind of package that into this crazy ride about these gangs of teenagers, these motorcycle gangs that kind of get tied up into this other world, this world of government experimentation and religion and cosmic awareness. It's very cool. It's a cool ass movie. If you've never seen Akira, I'd recommend Akira to anybody. Anybody that's like a genre fan, Akira is your movie. I'm telling you, dog. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. I don't think I've ever showed Akira to anybody that didn't like Akira. It's one of the first animes I probably really kind of got into or liked a lot. My history with anime is like, I watched Toonami when I was a kid. I watched Dragon Ball Z and Ronin Warriors, Outlaw Star, that kind of stuff. When I was younger, I was like 10, 11 when that stuff was going on. And my sister and I actually were big fans. And we used to just camp out every day after school, go watch Toonami, go watch Dragon Ball Z and all the things I just said. And I think at some point they played Akira. Because I can't remember if it was like when they were doing the movies at night or if they were doing it Saturday mornings. They used to have like Saturday morning anime things. It's the first time I ever saw Vampire Hunter D, which is another favorite of mine. I'll have to cover that someday. I think Akira might have been in there. I'm not 100% sure. But when I actually like really saw Akira for the first time, like really remember it, is when they re-released it in the early 2000s, and they did like a new dub and they put out a special edition. It was like this double disc, this really cool, like it was like a gray plastic case with a black insert and just the title Akira with like the Japanese lettering and like kind of blood smeared red over it. Always just thought that was a super cool poster. I always wanted it as a poster, rather. It would make for a cool poster. It's probably out there. There's probably one. But that's probably when I first really learned to appreciate it and probably liked it. That's where like my cognitive memories of it are. And for a long time, I think like a lot of people when you're younger, you just kind of don't really get what the fuck is going on. It's more of just a visual trip and a head trip at the end, because the way that the movie ends in kind of glorious, spectacular fashion, where literally like time and space collapse and then create like a different universe and timeline, and it's a crazy wild fucking thing that happens at the end of the movie. It's very cool, and seeing it on the big screen tonight in 4K was awesome. I've never seen it in a theater, much less 4K. But yeah, and it's always just kind of left an impression. I think most people, that's the case. Like I said, I've never shown this to anybody and had them not at least like dig it. At least like maybe not get super into it, maybe not want to run out and buy all the mangas or whatever, but generally people enjoy Akira. If you're a science fiction nerd. Um This was the first time, though, this screening is the first time I've ever watched it subtitled, though. I always used to watch the dub. I really liked the dub they did in the early 2000s. It's actually the guy who plays Kaneda, I believe, is the same actor who is like the second Black Ranger from the Power Rangers. There's a little trivia for you there. But the dub of it is, at least the one from the early 2000s, I've never actually seen the original, like, 80, 89 dub. The one that it would have been on VHS in the 90s. I never experienced that one. Or maybe that's what I saw on Sci-Fi Channel, actually. But I just don't have any real memory of it. So the one I knew is the American one. But it was cool watching it with the subs. They did this. They recorded it a little differently, because when normally in anime they actually come in, even the Japanese actors, they come in after the fact and do the dialogue after the animation is done. This, they actually recorded all of the actors beforehand and were able to like lip sync to the actual actors. So it gives it this actual more, I don't know, more like Western animated feel to the movie. And like just with everything else in the movie, it does not feel like overly specifically Japanese. There's certainly stuff in there. Don't get me wrong. There are certainly things in there that are specific cultural like things that definitely enrich the story if you kind of understand a little bit about it. But it does feel more like a Western cartoon than a lot of anime does, because it has very little in terms of what they would call fan service, if at all, actually. I don't even think they really have any. Maybe there's like a weird, just one shot or something like that. There's at one point a girl's breast get exposed, but it's not like a really gratuitous scene. The only thing gratuitous about Akira, you could argue, I guess, is the violence. But at the end of the day, that's part of the fun of watching an anime like this, is like the over-the-top crazy fucking violence. I mean, once Tetsuo gets his powers, he's the kid who gets kind of taken in by this shadowy government force, and they fuck with his brain. And he gets all these psychic powers. He's like just blowing people up. It's pretty incredible, actually. Josh Trank, he ripped off. He's kind of like, taking inspiration from homaged it in Chronicle, but he also did it, I think, in his Fantastic Four, his version of Fantastic Four, when Doctor Doom awakens from like a operating table and he's like walking through like this underground hospital facility. It's very reminiscent of Tetsuo. He has a scene in a hospital hallway in Akira. So like and this is the thing too. If you've never seen Akira, you might feel like you've seen it through osmosis, through cultural osmosis. It has influenced so many things, not just like anime in general, which I'm certainly sure it played a role in like making kind of the cyberpunk visual aesthetic an anime thing, like in the 90s, because that really was a thing in the 90s. But also just like storytelling, the types of stories, and so it's got a lot of interesting things, but it also feels like it pulls a lot from like kind of Western concepts of like mad scientists and whatnot. It just all feels very recognizable. I'm not sure really why that is specifically, and like what the director and writer was pulling from specifically Western wise, but it feels like kind of something like Hideo Kojima would have done in the like early 2000s, where you recognize all of these like kind of American cultural identifiers along with a lot of Japanese stuff, but it is definitely very like the style and the tone is very influenced by specific American things, like like Escape from New York and things like that, like a lot of John Carpenter stuff, and Akira, but Akira has its own identity though. And even if you feel like when you see it, like maybe like, oh, well, I feel like I've kind of already experienced this before. It does have its own idiosyncratic style and vibe, and watching it on the big screen was amazing. It was so cool. It was the best way to watch it. Honestly, I've been like, since my family's already had COVID, it's kind of like, oh, well, fuck it. We can go to the movies. The movies are open. And they've been doing a lot of like classic screenings and like $5 movies and stuff like that. And going and seeing some movies that I've actually seen a bunch of times, like on the big screen, is the best argument in my own mind and my perception of things, like for the theatrical experience. It really kind of reminded me that some things just play better on a giant fucking screen with loud speakers and just coming at you. I mean, something like watching Inception on IMAX for $5 was an awesome experience. And I've seen Inception probably like 10 times. It felt like watching it for the first time again. And I had the same experience with Akira, because I've seen Akira a ton of times. I don't even know how many times. I mean, I feel like maybe like actually like sat down, paid attention, watched it from beginning to end, probably like 4 times. But there's so many times in my life where I would just like be chilling out or doing whatever, and I just throw Akira on in the background, just to have it on, just to have something on. You're going to put something on anyways. It's kind of like white noise for your life as you're cleaning or you're doing whatever. I mean, I used to do that all the time with Akira. And so coming back to it this time, it had been a few years, probably like, I don't know, probably like 3 or 4 years since I watched it or even like had it on around me. Right. It felt great. It felt like a fresh watch. It's kind of like the same thing I feel when I see like an older movie, something I really love, and they do like a really great 4K transfer of it. And I get to bring it home and watch it on my nice TV and watch it in pristine condition. It makes it like the watch fresh. Like it's like I've never seen it before. It's like experience. It's the closest thing I've ever come to experiencing something for the first time again. I mean, when I saw 2001, the 4K, it was like the entire reason I bought like a 4K Blu-ray player, just so I could watch 2001 in 4K and with HDR. And it was like almost like a religious experience. It was so beautiful. And to be that familiar with something and then have it feel like new again is really special, especially when you're just like a movie fan like I am. Same thing with the Blade Runner, the final cut, the 4K of Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, not 2049. That is also another beautiful, amazing 4K. Honestly, a lot of the Warner Brothers restorations of their old catalog, generally pretty fucking solid. I have not really been disappointed by Warner Brothers yet. So, I don't know. Maybe they're big enough to put the money into these things, And getting to have that kind of experience with Akira it was like special. That's the best way I can put it. It just felt special. And I was taken with like kind of the layers of the movie this time. Really, also another good argument for the theatrical experience is like your whole world is shut out. You're in a dark room with a giant screen filling up your entire field of vision. And almost like it just focuses you in on it and you get lost in it, which is something like it's hard to do when you're just at home and you got your kids or you're married or you got dogs need to go outside. I mean, I can't even, like, it's so hard for me just in my lifestyle, just because I got like a 3-year-old kid and stuff, like trying to watch a movie from beginning to end in one sitting is really hard if I don't wait until like 10 o'clock at night, which I often do. I will all the time, but sometimes like it'll take me 2 or 3 sittings throughout a day to get through a 2-hour movie, which is not a great way to watch movies, by the way. It's not. And sometimes, it probably leads me to be mildly unfair to them. I think I am objective enough where I can kind of work through that because I'm aware of it, but it's not the way I like to watch movies, period. End of story. So being able to have that time, that 2-hour time carved out where I can just go sit in a theater is really special. And I was really got wrapped up in the layers of Akira. like how thoughtful Akira actually is, and how much is paying attention to the different facets of existence and life in this Neo Tokyo. You got so many layers. This is like kind of this union class warfare thing going on. There's these revolutionary activists. Then there's the mad scientists, and then you have like just like the biker gang kids. This kind of hierarchy of life that's going on in Neo Tokyo, and you get to see a little bit how everything is affected. Even the kind of religious stuff. It seems like there's a resurgence of like some sort of ideological kind of leanings, religious leanings. There's people out there that worship this Akira, who was like somebody that the government experimented on and literally pulled apart and put in jars, and then buried him under the Olympic Stadium, so that future generations could find him and maybe know what to do with somebody of this kind of power. And it was probably the first time I really felt like I really understood the movie the most. Maybe that's just being older too, more well-read, seen more movies, know storytelling a little bit better, know what kind of details to pay attention to. I mean, Akira, in fairness, and to be a little bit critical, Akira does feel like a little bit of a truncated story, and I think even the director and the creator, they're totally aware of that. That's why they had to basically take the tone and the themes of the manga and make a movie surrounding that rather than try to directly adapt it. So you're going to see a lot of similar scenes and whatnot, but the actual content of the story maybe broadly is the same, but it's very different. They had to adapt. It had to be a real adaptation of the material. So, I mean, and you can kind of sense that, because there are parts of the story where it does feel a little undercooked, underdeveloped. I think some of the characters are a little undercooked, underdeveloped, because there's actually surprisingly a lot. There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of characters to follow, a lot of subplots to follow. And also, one of the benefits of maybe understanding it or feeling like I understood it way more this time is because I had seen it so many times, enough where I wasn't so, I don't know, maybe I wasn't so concerned about just like kind of the main A plot. Like my mind would just kind of go to these other things because they're there, and I appreciate that they're there, and I do think it actually enriches like kind of the world. There's a lot of world building in Akira that is really subtle and really kind of in the background. That it doesn't draw attention to itself too much, but it kind of like gives you a hint of the kind of world that they live in and what has been going on, the social unrest that's been going on. Like Neo Tokyo is kind of in a powder keg even before this happens with Tetsuo. So it ends up feeling almost like prophecy, like destiny. And a lot of the people in Neo Tokyo feel the same way. Once they're kind of aware of Tetsuo, they start thinking, oh, it's Akira, the return of Akira. He's returned. He's like a second coming. He's come to save us, to bring us into salvation. When that's not really true. So it has all these different things. It's a much more thoughtful movie than I think at first glance many people may pick up on, because it is so cool. Just superficially, it's such a cool fucking movie. And it moves pretty well. It does have kind of like a lot of animes. They have like kind of almost like their own pace. It can feel a little lethargic at times. You kind of get used to it. But something like another classic anime, I talked about it a few months ago, is Ghost in the Shell from 1995. That one also visually stunning, super interesting world, a lot of interesting subtext there. But that one will literally stop dead in its tracks between set pieces to just like monologue about philosophy. It doesn't really build it into the world and into the dialogue very naturally, like the natural dialogue, the conversations. It feels like you're just reading almost excerpts out of like a philosophy Wikipedia. So it's not very elegant. I think Akira handles that much better. It feels much more natural. The first time you see it, though, it is, I would say, it's like I was going back to what I was saying about there being so many characters. It probably feels like slightly overwhelming, just the amount of stuff there is to follow, and you're not always kind of, because it's a kind of movie that's building these layers and then kind of is going to reveal it almost like in a mystery way at the end of the movie. And then also just trying to keep track of who is who and who's kind of related to who relative to what's going on. I imagine that would probably be kind of tough too. But having seen it so many times, like I said, four times about, probably this is probably my fifth time in the past 20 years that I've seen it. I really got it all. It just all kind of clicked. And I seriously think it is part of that is the way I got to watch it. Like just watching it and having my focus 100% on the screen. No phones, no life, just me and Akira. Well, me and like probably 20 other people. That's another thing. Like the theatrical experience right now is probably primo. It's good for me. It's good for you, but it's not good for the industry. It's not good for theaters, especially because they just like every like big movie that was going to be coming out in the next like 3 months, almost all but guaranteed are going next year. I mean, they've already announced a slew of them. Like all the Marvel stuff is getting pushed back a year. West Side Story remake getting pushed off an entire year into the Christmas 2021. It was supposed to come out this Christmas. So I don't even know if there's going to be theaters to go to. And then it's only a matter of time before James Bond and Dune and they pick up their fucking lunch pails and go home as well. They'll be coming out next summer. But yeah, so there's not a lot of people at the theaters, and even when you go see like these $5 classics and stuff, like there's not a ton of people. Like maybe like 2-3 other people in the theater with you sometimes. Like I took my son to see his first movie like last weekend, which was not the one I wanted to be his first movie, but it's just the way it worked out. We needed to get out of the house. I was like, all right, let's go. $5, go see Minions. There was only there's 4 other people there. There was a father and a daughter, and then a grandmother and a daughter. And we were all spread out this giant auditorium. So yeah, but it's good for us because like it's quiet and nobody fucking talking. The theaters are clean, the bathrooms are clean, which is not normal most of the time with a in operation movie theater. You're not waiting in fucking line forever. Although I will say this: when I took my kid to see Minions, the concessions people, man. And this is always the thing at movie theaters. Whether you're buying a movie ticket or you're going to get concessions, for whatever reason, it takes like 45 minutes for somebody to get some fucking popcorn and a soda. I've never understood this. Every single theater I've ever been to in my entire life, going to the concession stand is always a hassle. Sometimes just buying a ticket is a hassle. I like seriously, I'm not a wealthy man, okay? But I pay an extra $2 so I can just buy it on my app, and I can just buy the ticket on an app on my phone and not have to talk to anybody at the ticket buyer's booth. Because you always get somebody, always some, and they're not like old people either. It's always like these young 17, 18, 20-year-olds. They'll show up to a movie theater at like 6:30 and not know what they're going to see. I've never been like that, so I can't speak to that. It seems a little crazy to me. Imagine just showing up to a movie theater. I don't know. Maybe I'm the weird one. Maybe that's something people just do. I never have. I've never just randomly showed up to a movie theater and say, well, I'll just figure it out when I get there. Like I have to make plans. I certainly couldn't do that now. Especially these days, in the past 15 years, there's been no reason to do that. It was so easy to go find movie time. So I'm talking about like a couple years ago, people doing this. I'm not talking like back in 2000. That seems a little bit more normal. If you don't, not everybody had cell phones. You couldn't just call, because you used to have to call the movie theater, call the hotline and listen to the recording. And then sometimes you somebody will talk to you, lose concentration when they're going over the movie you want to watch. You gotta hang up and call again. Real good times. Yeah, so I think that this is actually going to have a little bit of an extended play. A lot of times the Fathom Things will play for like 1 or 2 nights. This is playing, at least where I live, the Regal where I live. The Regal in Georgia. It's playing for like a week, I think, which is cool. Honestly, if it was a $5 movie, I'd probably go see it again. Just because I had such a good time. When I was watching it, I was like, oh shit, I kind of want to go home and just like watch Akira again. Just like put it on in the background. This is why. Listen, U.S. government. Listen, feds. Listen, if you're listening, and I know you are, you're always listening. You listen. Zoobox is probably on a list. If you're listening, legalize marijuana across the board. Make it a national thing. Then let the states figure it out. Most of them will comply because it's tax revenue, whatever. So that what I could have done is I could have gone to see Akira 4K in the theater like a responsible adult, stayed sober, okay? Drank my fucking soda pop, went there, and then I could have come home and then re-experienced it with that 4K sense memory. High as a kite in the comfort of my own home. But you deny me these things. You are fascists. Denying me my edibles. All the man wants to do is chew on a fucking couple gummies and watch some cartoons. Is that so much to ask? In current year? Current year. Man can't even watch Akira high. It's sick. That's what it is. It's a sickness. But yeah, I don't know. I've been really enjoying going back to theaters and watching these older movies. More so than even watching anything that was even on the slate to come out. There were so many things I just didn't care, and I was like, man, even if big blockbusters and stuff come back, I wish they would do this shit like a weekly. Like just put a fucking old movie in the theater. I know that they can't because so many movies come out. That real estate at movie theaters is not a lot of it. But it's been so cool. I think I'm going to take my kid to another movie this weekend because they're cycling family movies like every week. They're putting new ones on there. I was like, shit, dude. Land Before Time, the original Land Before Time, before it got stupid and there were songs and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's playing. Like, imagine seeing that shit on a giant fucking screen. A 3-year-old kid who loves dinosaurs. This might happen. This might have to happen. Sounds cool as fuck. I'm excited about seeing Land Before Time in the theater, honestly. I haven't seen that in years, too. It'll be great. It'll be like a fresh watch. But yeah, if you feel safe or you've already had COVID or whatever, go to a movie theater. Help them out a little bit. Go buy a fucking popcorn. Go buy a soda. That ticket ain't covering shit, so you gotta go buy a soda or something. Because I'll miss them when they're gone. Even though it's a pain in the ass. And honestly, before all this happened, like I was not the most prolific going to the theater person. Like I didn't go to the theaters all the time. Because it is such a hassle and you got to schedule it. A lot of times I'd go. I always have awful experiences. I always end up watching stuff with just the shittiest fucking crowd. Like you want to go see something. You're excited to see something. You want to go see it opening weekend. And you end up with like some dipshits fucking talking on their phone behind you. And I'm the kind of person, I get a little confrontational. And you never know how it's going to go. Because you never know, because the words are already coming out of your mouth as you're turning around. And you don't really know who's sitting behind you. You got peripheral vision, of course, but you don't know. It might be a Bubba, giant 400-pound fucking taco eating Bubba. Behind me, he could attack me. He could kill me. I'm not a slouch. I'm okay. I'm in okay shape. At this point, now I am. After 9 months of dieting, back in okay shape. But still, I don't want to actually fight anybody. But I would like to say to somebody sitting behind me, "Yo, are you gonna shut the fuck up or what?" I remember I saw. This is totally random, but I saw It Chapter 1 with my little sister. My little sister worked at a movie theater. She got us our tickets comped. We go in there. There's these two dudes behind us, these two young guys. So I was able to kind of scare them a little bit. They're just talking. They're chatting away like they're in their house. Like we're sitting in their living room. So I turned around and I was like, "Hey man, are you going to talk through this whole fucking movie? Because if you are, I'm going to come sit next to you. Because I'd like to be part of it. Shut the fuck up." And then they didn't talk for the rest of the movie. One of those great empowering moments. The best moment though I've had in the theater was I didn't do anything. I went to see the movie Drag Me to Hell with Big Paul and our roommate Chris. We went to see a midnight showing. We get to the theater, we take our seats. Kids are being teenagers, just having fun. They're throwing fucking, what is it? Sunflower seeds down the stadium seating. Hits my friend in the back of the head a couple times. Dude, he fucking gets up like a predator, like an apex predator. He fucking scans it. He sees him. Boom. Sees him. He runs up there. He says he's like, hey, how's it going? He grabs the kid's fucking sunflower seeds out of his hand and dumps the entire bag on his head. And then he flicks the bag at him and said, enjoy your movie. And then just sit back down. And then we just watch the movie. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, you know. In terms of a theatrical run-in with some punk-ass kids, right? Some peaceful rioters up there in my goddamn movie screenings. Shit. But yeah, you know, it's cool. It's cool. You know, they were showing Jurassic Park months when they first opened, and did not get a chance to go. I wish I had. I wish I had taken my kid to see Jurassic Park, because he actually loves that movie. Surprisingly enough, you can't get him to sit through fucking a Pixar movie, but he'll sit his ass down and watch Jurassic Park almost start to finish. It would have been cool to see that on the big screen with them. So maybe, who knows, maybe it'll come back around. That would be cool. I definitely would do that. It's so weird to come out almost in support of these big conglomerate chains, but they will die. And I do like going to the movies enough that I want them to exist. I want them to be out there. You know? As much of a pain in the ass as it is sometimes. I'd rather them be there than not. I mean, the smaller theaters, they're fucking dead. They're fucked. They're not going to be reopening. At least not anytime soon. Not until you get some sort of angel investors or people to come in, some entrepreneurs. You know? I don't got an Alamo Drafthouse near me, so that's out of the question already, but I can't support them. So I got to support my local Regal, my Regal Cinema. It's the best one around me right now. So I got to do what I got to do. Whoa. Talking for about a half hour. I think I talked about Akira for about 5 minutes. But, that's why you love this. That's why you come to these daily videos, these hot daily videos, a stream of conscious nonsense. Sometimes they're worth your time. Sometimes they're not. Like maybe today. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, you want to keep up to date with everything Zoobox, bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter, also for Dan's Twitter. I'm actually suspended from Twitter right now, but you can follow me. I'll be unsuspended in 12 hours, but whatever. And also, if you'd like to make a daily recommendation, or a recommendation for one of these daily videos, rather, or you can make daily recommendations if you wanted to, throw it in the comments. Every day, come in, recommend a movie. I'll put it on a list. And at some point, we'll get to it. I don't discriminate. I will watch almost anything. We watch cuties on this channel, folks. We're fucking in it to win it. Okay? All right. Goodbye.